The sleek silver ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its smooth hull reflecting the morning sunlight. Inside, Nova adjusted her appearance modulator one last time, ensuring her luminescent blue skin wouldn't startle the humans too much. As the Federation's top diplomat, she had visited countless worlds, but Earth stirred something different in her. The landing pad at the International Space Center buzzed with activity. Military personnel, scientists, and government officials gathered to witness this historic moment. Among them stood Jack Wilson, a military consultant chosen to help bridge the gap between human and alien technology. Nova emerged from her ship with practiced grace. Her tall, slender form towered over the humans, but she moved with careful precision to appear less intimidating. Her large, silver eyes scanned the crowd, taking in their varied expressions of awe and uncertainty. "Welcome to Earth," announced General Thompson, stepping forward. "We are honored to host the Galactic Federation's representative." Nova bowed slightly, her translator converting her melodic language into clear English. "The honor is mine. Earth has fascinated our scientists for centuries." As formal introductions continued, Nova found her attention repeatedly drawn to the quiet military consultant standing near the back. Unlike the others who stared openly at her alien features, he seemed more interested in studying the ship's design. Later that day, during the diplomatic reception, Nova accessed her neural database. The Federation had cataloged thousands of species, many far more advanced than humans. Yet something about these seemingly primitive beings intrigued her. They'd achieved spaceflight despite their short lifespans. They'd survived countless disasters that should have wiped them out. They possessed a resilience that defied logic. "Fascinating design choices on your ship," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was the military consultant from earlier. "The energy distribution system is unlike anything we theorized." Nova turned, surprised by his technical insight. "You can determine that just by looking. The external configuration suggests a completely different approach to space-time manipulation than what we've been working on," Jack explained, his eyes lighting up with genuine curiosity. For the first time in her long diplomatic career, Nova felt a spark of something unexpected. This human didn't treat her with fearful reverence like most species did. Instead, he engaged her with pure intellectual interest. The evening progressed, and Nova found herself drawn into more conversations with various humans. Each interaction revealed new aspects of their species that didn't match the Federation's data. They showed remarkable adaptability, shifting between serious diplomatic discussion and casual jokes with ease. Back in her quarters that night, Nova reviewed her genetic compatibility database, a standard procedure for diplomats to ensure no accidental biological contamination. The system displayed thousands of compatible species from across the galaxy, many sharing her advanced genetic structure. Yet she found herself wondering about humans, with their seemingly simple DNA that somehow produced such complex beings. "Computer, display human genetic profile," she commanded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the double helix structure. By Federation standards, it was basic, even primitive. But as Nova studied it more closely, she noticed something remarkable. Human DNA contained an unusual flexibility, allowing for rapid adaptation to environmental changes. "Remarkable," she whispered to herself. "They're not primitive at all. They're unlimited." A message flashed across her screen. A meeting request for tomorrow to begin working on integrating Earth's defense systems with Federation technology. The name attached, Jack Wilson. Nova felt an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. The sensation confused her. As a member of a species that had evolved beyond most emotional responses, such reactions weren't normal. She made a note to run a diagnostic on her biological systems later. As she prepared for rest cycle, Nova couldn't help but feel that this assignment would be different from any other in her centuries-long career. These humans, especially one particular human, were about to challenge everything she thought she knew about advanced civilizations. The stars twinkled outside her window, and for the first time, Nova wondered if perhaps the Federation's definition of advanced needed some serious reconsideration. The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base as Nova made her way to the designated meeting room. Her silver eyes adjusted to the artificial lighting inside, where Jack already sat surrounded by holographic displays of Earth's defense systems. "You're early," Nova noted, her translator converting her musical tones into crisp English. "Couldn't sleep," Jack replied, not looking up from his work. "Been trying to understand how your shield harmonics could possibly integrate with our electromagnetic defense grid." Nova moved closer, her tall form casting a shadow over the displays. The human technology before her was centuries behind Federation standards, yet they had achieved remarkable results with such limited resources. "The main problem," Jack continued, running a hand through his disheveled hair, "is that our systems weren't designed with quantum fluctuation in mind. Your technology operates on principles we're only beginning to understand." Nova reached out, her slender fingers passing through the hologram to adjust some parameters. "Perhaps we're approaching this wrong. Instead of trying to upgrade your systems to match ours, we should adapt our technology to work with yours." Jack looked up, surprise evident on his face. "Wouldn't that be less efficient?" "Efficiency isn't everything," Nova replied, surprising herself with the statement. Such thinking went against standard Federation protocol. Their work continued through the morning, interrupted only by the occasional curious scientist peeking in to observe the alien-human collaboration. Nova found herself increasingly impressed by Jack's ability to grasp complex concepts that had taken other species centuries to understand. During their lunch break, an alarm suddenly blared through the facility. Red lights flashed as security personnel rushed past their room. "Containment breach in Lab 7. Someone shouted from the hallway. Jack was on his feet instantly. "That's the quantum physics lab. They were testing some of your technology." Without hesitation, they both ran toward the commotion. The scene that greeted them was chaos. A Federation power core had been improperly activated and was now generating an unstable energy field that threatened to collapse the building. The Federation protocol for such situations was clear: evacuate and destroy the facility to prevent catastrophic failure. But before Nova could give the order, Jack was already moving. "The field's expansion is following a pattern," he said, fingers flying over a nearby console. "If we can match its frequency with an opposing wave from our electromagnetic generators." "That's not standard procedure," Nova protested, but she watched in fascination as Jack worked. "Standard procedure would level this facility," he replied, not stopping. "We need to think outside the box." Nova had heard the human phrase before, but never understood its relevance until now. She watched as Jack combined Federation power readings with Earth's primitive but effective electromagnetic technology in ways she'd never considered. The unstable field began to shrink, its dangerous energy being channeled and dispersed safely. Within minutes, the crisis was over. Later, in their meeting room, Nova studied Jack with new interest. "Your solution wasn't in any Federation manual." "Sometimes the best solutions aren't in manuals," he said, returning to their previous work as if he hadn't just prevented a disaster. "Speaking of which, I think I know how we can make our systems work together." He pulled up a new diagram, showing a hybrid design that combined Federation quantum shielding with Earth's electromagnetic barriers. The design was unorthodox, even messy by Federation standards, but Nova could see its potential. "It's not elegant," Jack admitted, "but it would be more effective than either system alone." Nova felt that strange flutter in her chest again as she studied both the design and its creator. The Federation valued order, efficiency, and adherence to proven methods. But here was someone who saw possibilities where others saw only limitations. As they worked late into the evening, Nova began to understand why she found humans so fascinating. They didn't just think outside the box. They questioned why the box existed in the first place. Her report to the Federation that night was brief: integration proceeding as planned. She left out her growing admiration for human ingenuity. Some things, she decided, were better left unsaid. The tension in the command center could be cut with a knife. Red warning lights flashed across screens as reports came in of an unknown hostile ship entering Earth's solar system. Nova stood beside Jack, watching as human military personnel scrambled to prepare their defenses. "They're not responding to any communication attempts," reported a communications officer. "Federation protocols aren't working either." Nova's silver eyes narrowed as she studied the ship's configuration. This isn't a registered Federation vessel. The design suggests. Raiders. Raiders, Jack asked, his hands already moving across the control panel. Space pirates. They target developing worlds, stealing resources and technology. They shouldn't be here. Earth is under Federation protection. The Raider ship accelerated, its trajectory aimed directly at Earth's main defense station. Nova quickly calculated their options using her advanced cognitive processors. According to all Federation tactical analyses, Earth's defenses wouldn't stand a chance. But Jack was smiling. "They think we're defenseless," he said, a glint in his eye. "They don't know about our little modifications." Over the past weeks, they had finished implementing their hybrid defense system, the unconventional combination of Federation quantum shields and Earth's electromagnetic technology. It hadn't been tested in combat yet. The Raider ship launched its first attack, a barrage of energy weapons that would have torn through standard Federation shields. Instead, the hybrid defense system absorbed the impact, using the electromagnetic field to disperse the energy harmlessly. "Impossible," Nova whispered, watching her displays. "The energy disbursement is 300% more efficient than our calculations predicted." Jack's fingers danced across the controls. "That's because we're not just dispersing it. We're recycling it. Every shot they fire makes our shields stronger." The Raiders, clearly confused by their weapons' ineffectiveness, launched a second volley. This time, Jack was ready. He activated a subsystem that Nova hadn't even noticed him installing. "What are you doing?" she asked, watching in fascination as the hybrid shield began to pulse. "Remember how you said Federation shields can't normally generate offensive energy?" Jack grinned. "Well, I figured out how to change that. Watch this." The absorbed energy from the Raiders' attacks suddenly burst outward in a controlled wave, completely disrupting their ship's systems. The pirate vessel hung dead in space, all its power drained. Federation security ships arrived within hours to arrest the Raiders, but Nova barely noticed. She was too busy studying the combat logs, trying to understand exactly how Jack had achieved what Federation engineers had declared impossible for centuries. "How did you know it would work?" she asked him later, as they sat in the base's quiet observation room, Earth's moon hanging large in the window. Jack shrugged. "I didn't, but I had a gut feeling about the energy conversion possibilities." A gut feeling. Nova had heard the phrase before, but never understood it. You risk everything on an instinct. "Sometimes that's all we have," he replied. "Humans had to evolve making split-second decisions. Trust our instincts or die. Over time, we got pretty good at it." Nova considered this. Her species had evolved beyond such primitive decision-making methods, relying instead on pure logic and calculated probability. Yet Jack's gut feeling had produced results that defied their most advanced calculations. "You know what I think?" Jack continued, looking out at the stars. "I think sometimes too much analysis gets in the way. Sometimes you need to take a leap of faith." Faith. Nova repeated the word carefully. Another human concept that had always puzzled her. Yet watching Jack work, seeing how his intuitive leaps led to revolutionary breakthroughs, she was beginning to understand. She felt that now familiar flutter in her chest again as she watched him. By all logical measures, humans were centuries behind her species in development. Their biology was simpler, their technology less advanced, their methods often chaotic and unpredictable. But there was something else there, something that defied measurement or classification. A spark of possibility that made them capable of achieving the impossible simply because no one had told them it was impossible. For the first time in her long life, Nova wondered if perhaps her species had evolved in the wrong direction. The Federation Embassy on Earth was a towering structure of crystal and light, its architecture a stark contrast to the surrounding human buildings. Nova stood before Commander Reed, her superior's holographic form flickering slightly as he delivered his warning. "Your recent reports are concerning," Reed's translucent figure stated, his expression stern. "You're spending an excessive amount of time with the humans, particularly this military consultant. Jack has been instrumental in developing new defensive technologies," Nova replied, keeping her voice steady despite an unfamiliar sensation of anger. "His innovations have improved our own systems." "That's not the point." Reed's image wavered. "We're receiving reports of you displaying emotional responses. You've been observed laughing, showing concern, even experiencing physical responses to his presence." Nova felt her skin temperature rise slightly. Another involuntary reaction she'd been experiencing more frequently. "I fail to see how this affects my work." "We evolved beyond emotional attachments for a reason," Reed continued. "Emotions cloud judgment, lead to irrational decisions. Look at what happened during the Raider attack. You allowed him to implement an untested defense strategy based on intuition. A strategy that worked better than anything in our database," Nova countered, surprising herself with the heat in her voice. The commander's expression darkened. "You're proving my point. Listen to yourself. You're defending primitive methodology with emotional arguments." Later that day, Nova found Jack in their usual workspace, reviewing data from their latest shield modifications. He looked up as she entered, his expression immediately shifting to concern. "Rough meeting?" he asked. Nova paused, still unused to how easily humans could read emotional states. "Commander Reed believes I'm becoming compromised by human influence." Jack set down his tablet. "Compromised how?" "My species evolved to operate on pure logic," she explained, settling into a chair near him. "Emotions were seen as evolutionary holdovers, unnecessary for advanced beings. We developed technologies to suppress them, eventually breeding them out entirely." "That sounds," Jack searched for the right word, "lonely." The simple observation hit Nova with unexpected force. "We don't experience loneliness. We don't experience anything that might interfere with rational decision-making." And yet, Jack smiled slightly. "You've been experiencing quite a lot lately, haven't you?" Nova felt that familiar flutter again. "How did you know?" "I've seen how you've changed since you arrived. You smile more. You get excited about discoveries. You even laughed at my terrible joke yesterday about the quantum fluctuations." Commander Reed says these responses indicate contamination from human influence, that I'm regressing. Jack leaned forward, his expression serious. "Can I tell you what I think? I think emotions don't make decisions weaker. They make them stronger. Logic tells you what you can do, but emotions tell you what you should do." "The Federation would disagree," Nova said quietly. "The Federation didn't come up with that shield modification that saved the base," Jack pointed out. "That came from combining logic with intuition, technology with instinct. Sometimes the best solutions come from embracing both." Nova processed this, remembering how she'd felt during the Raider attack. Her logical analysis had predicted failure, but something else, something she was only now learning to recognize, had told her to trust Jack's instincts. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "evolution can move in more than one direction. Or maybe," Jack suggested, "true advancement isn't about eliminating parts of ourselves, but learning to integrate them better." Nova felt something shift inside her, like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. The Federation had spent millennia trying to eliminate emotional responses, seeing them as weaknesses to be overcome. But watching humans, watching Jack, she was beginning to see another possibility. Maybe emotions weren't primitive holdovers to be eliminated. Maybe they were essential parts of a complex system, working together with logic to create something greater than either could achieve alone. As she sat there, Feeling both the logical and emotional responses working within her, Nova realized she was experiencing something entirely new, not just emotions, but the beginning of wisdom. The message from Federation High Command glowed on Nova's personal display, its contents both thrilling and troubling. She had been offered the position of Chief Scientific Director in the Federation's core worlds, a role that would put her at the forefront of galactic advancement. Under normal circumstances, she would have accepted immediately. It was the logical choice, the culmination of centuries of service. Yet she found herself hesitating, her gaze drifting to the earth visible through her window. A soft chime announced a visitor. Jack entered, carrying data tablets from their latest project. "You look distracted," he noted, setting down the tablets. "Something wrong?" Nova projected the message into the air between them. "I've been offered a promotion. Chief Scientific Director of the Federation's Advanced Research Division." Jack read the floating text, his expression carefully neutral. "Sounds impressive. When do you leave?" "I haven't accepted yet." He looked at her sharply. "Why not? Isn't this what you've been working toward?" Nova stood, moving to the window. "A week ago, I would have said yes. But now," she turned to face him. "The Federation believes they've reached the peak of evolution. That removing emotion, focusing purely on logic, is the path to advancement." "But you don't believe that anymore," Jack said softly. "The work we've done here, combining human intuition with Federation technology, has produced results that should be impossible. We're breaking barriers that pure logic said couldn't be broken." A second message flashed on her display. Commander Reed's stern face appeared. "Nova, your genetic scans are showing increasing anomalies," he stated without preamble. "Your emotional suppression systems are degrading. You must return immediately for treatment." Jack stepped forward. "You're changing." "Yes," Nova admitted. "My species' modifications are breaking down. I'm experiencing emotions more strongly each day. The Federation considers it contamination." "And what do you consider it?" Nova felt her heart rate increase, another new sensation she was still getting used to. "Evolution, but in a direction the Federation fears. They want me to return for treatment to suppress these changes." "What do you want?" Jack asked quietly. The question struck her like a physical force. What she wanted had never been a consideration before. Logic, duty, advancement, these were what mattered. But now, "I want to understand these changes," she said slowly. "I want to explore what happens when logic and emotion work together instead of against each other. I want—" She paused, gathering courage she didn't know she had. "I want to stay here." The admission hung in the air between them. Jack moved closer, his presence sending those now familiar sensations through her body. "The Federation won't like that," he said. "No," Nova agreed. "They'll say I'm throwing away centuries of evolution, that I'm choosing a primitive path." "Are you?" Nova looked at Earth through the window, then back at Jack. "I'm choosing a different path, one that doesn't reject either logic or emotion, but seeks to understand how they can work together." She straightened, her decision crystallizing. With a gesture, she pulled up the command interface and began composing her response to Federation High Command. "They'll never understand," she said, fingers moving across the holographic keys. "How can they? They've forgotten what it means to feel, to intuit, to hope." Jack watched as she worked, a small smile playing at his lips. "You know, for someone from an emotionless species, you're showing a lot of courage right now." Nova paused in her typing, considering this. Perhaps courage isn't about not feeling fear. Perhaps it's about feeling it, and choosing to act anyway. She sent her response, a respectful but firm rejection of both the position and the demand for treatment. As the message disappeared into space, Nova felt something new: freedom. Freedom to choose, to feel, to explore possibilities that pure logic would never consider. The Federation might call it contamination, but standing there with Jack, watching the sun set over Earth, Nova had another word for it: Evolution. The Federation Science Council chambers materialized around Nova as her hologram connected to the emergency session. Dozens of stern faces stared at her from their elevated positions, their expressions showing carefully controlled disapproval. Scientist Nova, the head council member, spoke. Your recent actions have caused significant concern. Our data shows your genetic structure is undergoing unprecedented changes. Nova stood straight, feeling strangely calm despite the gravity of the situation. Yes, and I believe these changes warrant further study rather than suppression. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. On a separate screen, she could see Jack watching from Earth, present as a witness to the proceedings. You suggest we should study contamination? Another council member asked, voice sharp with disbelief. I suggest, Nova replied, that we should question our assumptions about human compatibility. Our records show no successful genetic bridges between our species and theirs, but we never questioned why. She gestured, bringing up holographic displays of her own genetic scans. My exposure to humans, particularly their emotional responses, hasn't degraded my cognitive functions as our theories predicted. Instead, it's triggered adaptive changes. The council members leaned forward, studying the data despite themselves. Nova continued, her voice growing stronger. Our species prides itself on removing emotional responses, seeing them as primitive. But what if we were wrong? What if emotions, when properly integrated with logic, create something more advanced than either alone? Preposterous, the head council member declared. Our evolution beyond emotions took millennia of careful genetic engineering. Yes, Nova agreed, but evolution isn't a straight line. Sometimes moving forward means reconsidering paths we previously abandoned. She brought up more displays, showing the results of her work with Jack. Human adaptability isn't a weakness, it's their greatest strength. Their ability to combine emotion and logic, instinct and reason, has led to innovations our pure logic could never conceive. You're basing these conclusions on your work with one human, a council member observed dryly. Nova felt her skin flush slightly, another emotional response she no longer tried to suppress. My work with Jack has demonstrated possibilities our science claimed were impossible. The hybrid defense systems we developed together outperform anything in our database. She paused, then added softly, and my personal changes suggest that humans and our species aren't just compatible. We might be complementary. The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. Nova waited, watching Jack's image on her private screen. He gave her an encouraging nod. You realize, the head council member said when order was restored, that pursuing this path might lead to your genetic isolation from our species. I understand, Nova replied. But consider this. What if isolation from change is exactly what's holding our species back? We claim to be advanced, yet we fear adaptation. We praise evolution while refusing to evolve. She straightened, feeling a surge of what humans called determination. I request permission to establish a formal research program studying human Federation compatibility. Not to prove them inferior or ourselves superior, but to understand how we might learn from each other. Silence fell over the chamber. Nova could see the council members communicating through their neural networks, processing her request. Finally, the head council member spoke. Your request is unprecedented, but your data is compelling. We will allow your research to continue under strict observation. Nova felt relief flood through her, another emotion she was learning to appreciate rather than suppress. Thank you, Council. As the session ended and the holograms faded, she found herself back in her Earth office. Jack was waiting. That was brave, he said quietly. Nova smiled, a genuine expression she no longer tried to control. It was logical and emotional, both. Think they'll ever understand? Perhaps not, she admitted, but they're willing to study it. That's a start. Looking out at the Earth sunset, Nova realized she had finally bridged the gap between what she was programmed to be and what she could become. The Federation might see it as breaking tradition, but she was beginning to understand that sometimes traditions needed to be broken for new growth to occur. Her hybrid defense systems had proved that combining different approaches could create something stronger than either alone. Perhaps the same was true for species, for emotions, for evolution itself. 1 year had passed since Nova's controversial decision to remain on Earth. The Federation Embassy's garden, a perfect blend of alien and Earth flora, hummed with activity as delegates gathered for a historic ceremony. Nova stood before the assembled crowd, her blue skin shimmering in the sunlight. Beside her, Jack adjusted his formal military uniform. They were about to announce the results of their year-long research into human Federation compatibility. Commander Reed, now a supporter after seeing their results, stepped forward to introduce them. Today marks a turning point in Federation history. What began as a simple cultural exchange has evolved into something unprecedented. Nova activated the holographic display, showing complex genetic patterns floating in the air. When I first arrived on Earth, the Federation believed humans were too primitive for meaningful genetic compatibility. We were wrong. The displays shifted, showing the changes in her own genetic structure over the past year. Human adaptability isn't just physical, it extends to their very essence. Their ability to combine emotion and logic has triggered evolutionary responses we thought impossible. Jack took over, pointing to specific data points. By studying Nova's changes and working with volunteer Federation scientists, we've discovered that human DNA can form stable bonds with Federation genetics. But more importantly, these bonds create something entirely new. The audience watched in fascination as the display showed the hybrid genetic structures they'd discovered. Federation members who had initially opposed Nova's research leaned forward, their scientific curiosity overcoming their prejudices. The implications go beyond genetics. Nova continued. Our hybrid defense systems are being adopted across Federation space. Human intuition combined with our technology has created solutions we never imagined. And this is just the beginning. She paused, feeling that familiar warmth as she looked at Jack. Their personal relationship had shocked many, but it had also opened doors to understanding that pure logic never could. The Federation evolved past emotions, believing they made us weaker, she said. But humans showed us that emotions, when properly integrated with logic, make us stronger. They don't cloud judgment. They enhance it. Commander Reed stepped forward again. Based on these findings, the Federation Council has approved the establishment of the first Human Federation Integration Program. Volunteers from both species will work together to explore these new possibilities. The announcement was met with applause from both humans and Federation members. Nova saw some of her own kind displaying emotional responses they would have suppressed a year ago. Later, as the celebration continued, Nova and Jack stood in their favorite spot overlooking the city. The setting sun painted the sky in colors that still amazed her enhanced vision. "Did you ever imagine this when you first landed?" Jack asked. Nova shook her head, smiling, an expression that now felt completely natural. "I was supposed to be here for 6 months, studying a primitive species. Instead, I discovered that true advancement isn't about eliminating parts of ourselves. It's about finding new ways to grow." "The Federation's definitely growing," Jack observed. "I saw at least 3 of your kind laugh today, actually laugh." "Change is happening faster than we expected," Nova agreed. "Some are calling it a new renaissance for both species." She turned to face him, her silver eyes reflecting the sunset. "You know, I could have chosen anything when I came to Earth. Any path, any future the Federation offered. And you chose this," Jack finished softly. "I chose possibility," she corrected. "I chose to question what we thought we knew about evolution, about advancement, about what makes a species truly advanced." The last rays of sunlight caught the small quantum crystal on her wrist, a symbol of their formal bond, combining both human and Federation traditions. It was another first, another barrier broken. Above them, stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, more Federation ships were heading to Earth, carrying scientists and diplomats eager to explore this new path. What had started as one alien woman's choice was becoming a movement, a renaissance, a new chapter in the evolution of both species. Nova felt joy, pride, love, emotions her kind had once rejected but now were learning to embrace again. She had chosen Earth, chosen humanity, chosen Jack, and in doing so, she had helped both species find a new way forward together. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities that neither logic nor emotion alone could have imagined. But together, they would explore every one of them.